A mud kitchen gives kids the perfect opportunity to get mucky in the garden without worry, letting them splash around with mud and water while encouraging imaginative and creative play that gets them being active outside. There's a lot you can do with a chop saw, a drill driver and some screws. We have everything you need to build your mud kitchen, including timber, but you can also use any offcuts you might have left over from a recently completed project. You can use almost any type of timber, from standard boards to fence posts, as long as it's treated for outdoor use. This helps it last longer and stand up to the elements. Your available space completely dictates the size you're aiming for, which means you can get really creative when it comes to scale in your overall design. There's no one right way to build your mud kitchen. You might find it easier to loosely draw up your design before starting to build, or you can do it on the fly and see where your imagination takes you. In this video, Carla, a DIY enthusiast, is going to show you how to build a mud kitchen. The materials for this project are all available from Wickes and will take a DIYer with moderate skill approximately half a day to do, plus any time you allow for drying if you choose to paint, stain or treat your timber. Look out for this icon during the video for our DIY top tips. Find the complete tools and materials at the end of this video or visit the Ideas and Advice Hub at wickes.co.uk for a step-by-step guide and more inspiration. Secure your chop saw to your bench, waiting until you're ready to begin cutting before you plug it in. The chop saw lets you work quickly and consistently, which makes it the ideal tool to use for this step. Once you've decided on your size, measure and mark your timber in preparation for cutting. Make sure to clamp your timber in place and support the end of longer lengths if necessary. When you line up your timber, check that you're cutting on the right side of the blade. If you're confident of all your measurements before you get started, it can save time and effort to get all your cutting done in one go. However, it's also okay to cut what you need as you go along. Once your cutting is complete, make sure to go over your timber with a sander to smooth over the edges. You can either do this by hand or using a palm sander depending on what you prefer. There are many different ways to construct a mud kitchen. For our design, we're starting out by dry laying the configuration of our end frames. Once the pieces for your first panel are in place, join them by screwing them together. Repeat this process to build your other end frame. Stand up your two end frames on your workbench. Lay your upper and lower boards in position so that they're sat flush against the end panels. This gives you your worktop and shelf. Embed screws into your first front fascia board before offering it up and clamping it in place. Quick clamps are really handy when working on your own, as they free up your hands to do other things. Screw your front fascia board into place before repeating this process for the front board on the lower shelf. Then do the same for the upper and lower fascia boards on the back. Lay your first board in place against the back of the end frames and clamp it in place to hold it steady. Lay your spacers on top before laying the second board for your splashback and clamping it in place. Attach them to the end frames by screwing them in place, then remove your spacers. Our design includes hanging chimes that are attached to a board that runs across the top. Attach hooks to one end of the top shelf by piloting holes and then screwing them in by hand. Once you've fitted the amount of hooks you'll need for your chimes, fit the board to the top of your mud kitchen so that the hooks are hanging off the end. Cut your dowels to size in ascending order of size to create your chimes, then drill pilot holes in the top of each of them and twist in the eyelet. Once you've constructed your mud kitchen, it's time to get imaginative and personalise it with some decorative touches. You can repurpose or reclaim all sorts of fixtures and fittings to kit out your kitchen. We used metal handles and turned them into pretend hob burners by marking the position and screwing them into the top shelf. We removed the top front fascia panel for easier access to the underside of the shelf. Once that's all done, dust down the surface with a dry paintbrush. Screw drawer knobs onto the front fascia for your hob controls. You can also install a bowl for a pretend sink. Measure and mark around the outside of the bowl first, then adjust for the lip of the bowl so it's held in place by the lip when you drop it into your hole. Drill a hole on your cutting line as a starting point, then cut out your hole using a jigsaw. We even added additional hooks on the backsplash, which are great for holding tea towels or other utensils and accessories that can be utilised during playtime. Once you've finished installing your decorative touches, give it a good brush down to remove any dust. Finally, attach your chimes to the hooks and your mud kitchen is ready. If you want to give it some extra finishing touches, going over the entire thing with a palm sander is a great way to make sure that all the surfaces are smooth to the touch, as exterior timber can be quite rough. You can also get creative with colours and give it a new look with paint, or provide the timber with some extra protection from the weather using the treatment of your choice.